Hello, everybody, and welcome to Topic Hash Podcast number 3. And today's topic is what, fiatjaf? What we're going to talk about?
Open timestamps.
Ah, what about open timestamps?
Open timestamps is a very nice protocol for timestamping your crap on the Bitcoin blockchain. Yes, very cool. But what do you think about it? You think it's a very cool thing? Like, is it being used by anyone?
Well, according to the website, it is.
But like,
And Peter Todd mentioned that it was used to an election was actually timestamped. I would have to find a tweet.
hmm,
Um,
I
he,
think this thing has existed for many years, and
yeah.
it's not being used very much.
Well,
And
it is used. I don't know to what extent it's used very much. It's a
I
very
think I think it should be used more, but at least by enthusiasts for hobby things, and I don't see it being used.
no. I think like the
There was a Twitter bot, something like that, that stamped people's comments so they couldn't backtrack, like they couldn't. But although that didn't work because
the point is it's very mundane, right? So I guess there are applications, but they're very boring, and it's something that happens in the background, and it's only something you need in like very particular cases. So it's not very exciting stuff, but it's um well, I think
well, there are many boring things people do on Bitcoin, but because they are on Bitcoin, people get excited, like paying for crap on the internet, right?
so.
It's very boring. But
Let's
people record videos of them doing these very
let's put
boring
some
activities.
order into this chaos. So we have open timestamps. It's a protocol developed by Peter Todd.
But do you know the idea behind it? Like, I think like
Yes.
everybody already always knew that it was possible to use the blockchain to timestamp stuff. But open timestamps is a just a standard for communicating these proofs. And this is
Yes.
not clear anywhere. Like, I imagine most people think you have to use this open timestamp software or something like that, and that's the way to do it, or I don't know. Maybe they think there's some magic there. I don't know.
Okay, so the reason that we're talking about it is because you put a message online um, saying that you don't understand open timestamps,
Okay.
which is just you trolling for attention seeking for
No,
some
people
fucking
were
reason.
complaining that I was not posting anything on Noster, so I had to post things.
So you're so you didn't understand a very particular thing about it, and so so you just messaged that you don't understand the thing entirely,
Yeah,
which is very helpful and not
I don't
confusing
understand.
at all.
I don't understand 100%, but then people come and give me the basic idea, which I had already understood.
why why would they do that if you say that you don't understand the entire thing? Okay, so let's explain it to people who might not be aware. So the point is that you timestamp, which means that you put something um, into the Bitcoin blockchain, because the Bitcoin blockchain is powered by proof of work. It has this attribute that it's well, the whole point of Bitcoin is that there are these blocks every 10 minutes, right? So the proof of work itself costs time, and because it costs time to perform, you can also know that the blockchain itself costs a lot of time to actually produce. So if you put stuff in there, um, it now is bound to that same time, and that's roughly running along with the time that we
But
use on our clocks.
they have to
Mhm.
declare the time in the blocks, and that's used to adjust the
Yes,
difficulty so the blocks have on average the same.
yes, but the whole point is that the Bitcoin blockchain itself, just pure from data, if you're looking, the, this is like the magic of Bitcoin, is that the effect of the difficulty of the difficulty or the accumulation of work within the chain is data without context, right? Or it allows you to interpret the chain as such. Um, to like to have some degree of certainty that it wasn't trivially produced, which is the whole point. So that we know that there's just one chain and everybody follows the same thing. We're in consensus with that. But the whole point is that the moment I think we're making this explanation far too complicated for everybody who probably just realizes that if you put something into the blockchain, it's now bound to time. So the whole point of a timestamp is that you're able to prove that something was at least that old, right?
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
prove that it's older than that, but you can at least prove that it was existed at that time. So let's say before, for example, a prediction. So I make a prediction about next year. So if I put that prediction into the blockchain now, I can prove the fact that I made that prediction now and not 5 minutes after the event happened next year, right?
yeah.
So this is the whole point behind the timestamping thing, and the way it's done, or the way that Peter Todd made this protocol is saying, okay, we I don't know if people know how a Merkle tree works. If you don't, you have to, and you if you don't, and you consider yourself a Bitcoiner, you're not a Bitcoiner because
No, no,
Bitcoin is
that's
all Merkle trees, right? Bitcoin
no.
is just Merkle trees
You
and
don't
Merkle
have to
trees and
know what a
Merkle trees.
Merkle tree is.
Every Bitcoiner needs to know what a
No,
Merkle tree is because it's
you have
all
to know
Merkle trees.
what's a hash is. If you know what's a,
Everything is a Merkle tree
it's
in
not. It's not.
Bitcoin. It is.
No, no,
Dude,
no.
we even made the contracts Merkle trees. We are gonna
What
make
contracts?
keys Merkle tree. Everything is a Merkle tree. The chain itself is like a Merkle tree.
You
It's
just
all
love
Merkle
that
trees.
word. So I know people love that word, but it's not a people. We could live without that word, like this
Yes,
Merkle
but
tree.
not the concept. We cannot live without the concept of a
Yeah, we
Merkle
can,
tree.
maybe we can't live without the concept, but the fact that people overuse that expression bothers me because they think it's oh super cool. I'm using this Merkle, and
It's very
Americans don't
basic.
even know how to pronounce the thing. They write Merkel like Angela Merkel, and yeah,
In any event, so there is a method in order to combine a bunch of hashes into a single hash, and subsequently prove that one of those hashes is part of the single hash. So what you do is uh, you hash the file or your statement or whatever it is you want timestamped. You turn it
but
into a hash. You give that hash to a server. That server then combines all these hashes, turns that into one single hash, and produces proofs for each individual hash that it's included into that one hash. That top hash, or that digest, puts that into the chain and gives the proof relating to that top hash that is in the chain and their specific pieces of data, to give it back to everybody who submitted a hash. And so as a result, what happened now, I have um, a proof that the thing that I submitted is part of the blockchain. Not directly, but indirectly, but it's in there, right? So now my document or thing or statement is timestamped,
yeah,
and it scales really well, right? It's very cheap. You can timestamp all the things that you want, and it doesn't really matter in terms of block space, etc. So I guess that's a very important thing. That it's the action of
yeah,
timestamping itself is like trivially cheap or potentially trivially cheap. It gets cheaper the more people do it, right? That's a really good way of scaling. If stuff gets cheaper, the more you do it, right? Um, so
yeah.
uh,
Now people will go to the Open Timestamps website and they will click the button all day, so it gets cheaper.
yes, yes. Everybody click the button. It doesn't actually get, yeah. It relatively gets cheaper per timestamp. Um, so
So what the problem? The problem is if you go to the OpenTimestamps.org website, there's no explanation of how the thing works. Like it's just a bunch of marketing babble,
there
and
is a button where you can click to read more,
there's
and
a
that
very hidden word in the middle of a bunch of text.
that is
And if you
actually a hyperlink.
yeah, that is, but there are much more prominent buttons that if you click on them, you don't get the explanation. But if you click on this thing, a single word, four letters in the middle of a blob of text more, you go to Peter Todd's website, and there's an article there has a bunch of useless babble, and if you read attentively, you maybe understand in the end what's exactly happening, but he doesn't really explain. Like he doesn't care to explain very much. So maybe I'm just very dumb. But I think 1 second. Yeah, but the idea that you have this in the middle of Peter Todd article, there's a proof, like a depiction of open timestamps proof that reads like has a bunch of prepend, a bunch of letters, SHA to 256 again, and then it has prepend, and then it has append and prepend, and SHA 256, whatever. Many of these things, and that is the proof. And I don't know if for other people it makes sense immediately, but for me it didn't make
Well,
complete
he explains
sense.
why he does it that way, right? In
Yeah,
the paper. Yeah.
yeah, because you can do it. Doesn't matter how, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
it works because, but it wouldn't work in every case, I guess. But it
okay,
works in
so
this
so
case.
we started out with giving like the best explanation on the internet um in podcasting history of like what timestamping is. Uh,
You think what
and
I'm saying doesn't is not a good explanation?
no, what I started out with was explaining was like a terrible explanation, but we're now getting to the point. Why were you studying timestamps, fiatjaf?
No, I wanted to implement timestamp in Nostr events using this thing, and
Why?
why?
Yeah,
Well, I don't know. Whatever people want. I was just bored and started to make it. To start. Actually, I
you
think
were just bored. So
I
there's
wrote I
like
wrote a nip.
there are fundamental societal problems that we're running into, and like this is like probably a large part of the solution. But you know, the only reason why fiatjaf does them is because he's bored. Thank you.
I was doing something else, and the other stuff I was doing was boring. So I this idea came to my mind. Like maybe I have to finally implement the nip for open timestamps that I wrote a year ago or more, and so I started trying to do it. But I remember that I didn't implement it before because I didn't understand because there's no explanation. But this time I decided to try a little more. Um,
Okay, so let's get
so what
into.
happens is that this sequence of operations, prepend, append, SHA-256, these are instructions that you have to run so that you confirm that your proof is valid. Like the instructions are the proof, and you run them.
Hmm.
You start with one parameter that is the thing that you want to timestamp or that you have timestamped, which is a
Yeah,
sequence
and
of
then
bytes.
you
And
run through the
you run through the entire thing, and you
yes,
get to the Bitcoin block header.
yes, you run through the Merkle tree.
Yeah. You run through an internal Merkle tree. Part of it is created by you by your open timestamps client. It does it without telling you it's doing it. Like it just adds some random numbers to your thing that you actually want to timestamp. Then it passes that the result of that to the server that is aggregating more stuff, and then the server adds more stuff like from other people or maybe random stuff, I don't know, and then it returns you stuff back. And then when the transaction is published, the server gives you the transaction ID, or maybe it gives you the entire path to the Bitcoin block header, to the Merkle root of the Bitcoin header. Um, yeah, and you just append all these things that are generated in different places. You just put everything in a single sequence of instructions.
Yes.
Yeah, you know that?
Well, it's and no, because I never really bothered to look at it to this level. But now, when I did look at it, and now your explanation, it sounds very logical that what it is just like the actual Merkle tree that you're going through.
Yeah,
So yeah, it
yeah.
makes sense.
In the beginning, the Merkle tree has a bunch of like uh, variable length byte sequences, and they have like like one SHA-256, and then one append operation, and then another SHA-256, and one prepend operation. This part is the part that is external to the block, like it's inside the op return that the server is putting on the chain, for example.
Right.
And then when you get to the level of a Bitcoin transaction, you join, like you enter in the actual
Yes.
Merkle
Yes.
tree that is in the block, and then you have sequence of double SHA-256, which is how they make the actual Bitcoin Merkle tree.
Yes, that's what
It's
Satoshi implemented the double SHA-256
yeah,
just to be sure.
yeah, yeah. That was a good move. And then all the bytes that you add, they all have the same length, and they are all Bitcoin transaction IDs. And then there's another confusing factor that is these things I took a long time to realize. I think these IDs, they are not the hash of the full transaction. They're only the hash of the non-SegWit, like the non-witness transaction, like
Yes.
the part that is not on SegWit. So that confused me a little more. Took me a little more time to understand. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Because otherwise you'd still have transaction malleability, I think, because
Yeah.
that was the entire point of SegWit.
Yeah. The witness part, they are hashed in a
Yes.
separate place and added to the Merkle tree in a different path. Yeah. I could
Anyway.
go on with this. I think the fact that there's no, it's very simple actually, but there's no explanation of how to do it in practice. Like there's no
Hmm.
description, no in no clear language. There's only software implement. Like there's just three links. Like use this Python library, use this JavaScript library. I think
And
this is bad. I think
and
this is bad.
you weren't
I was trying
satisfied.
to do. I was trying to do it in Go, and I think more people would use it if it was explained a little more clearly. But I'm not going to do the explanation. Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Right now, yes. Okay, so we're I think we're slowly getting to the interesting stuff. Um, so now we know how open time or now you know how open time sounds works. You're
Yeah, we
going to
can end
implement.
the episode now.
No, you're going to no. We're actually going to get into the meat of potatoes of the episode. Um, you're trying to implement it into Nostr, and but what is your motivation of implementing it into Nostr other than the fact that you were bored?
Well, I think, well, the motivation that's,
What's the added value of putting timestamps on top of Nostr?
I don't know. Do you have any use case? I think I was thinking about the prediction stuff. Like I wanna make predictions and prove that I'm right. But uh, that's, I don't know if that's a good use case because you can make a bunch of different predictions and then you just review the one that says you're right in
Yeah,
the
you can
future.
all use. So there are a couple things that people have to realize with timestamps is that you cannot avoid the fact that there is like shadow bookkeeping. You can always maintain a parallel um, reality or administration that you're also timestamping, but not revealing. Right? You don't show it to anybody. You only show it to somebody, or you only reveal it whenever it's relevant. Um, so it doesn't necessarily prevent you from lying, but it does prevent you from lying after the fact. So you will have to prepare your lie before the fact, which is actually pretty hard, right? It's pretty damn hard to um, get a good coherent lie going before, probably before you actually realize that you had to lie, because most of the times it's you lie after the fact.
Yeah,
Um, and that's something you can no longer do if you timestamp. Now, these are like
you can say like the price of
marginally.
Bitcoin on day whatever will be some number, and then you do that for all possible.
Yes, that's very easy to lie because then you can just lie every single number, right?
Yeah,
Um, but the moment stuff gets a little bit more complex, then it starts to become a little bit more difficult, especially if you don't know what the actual reality it is you will have to lie against, um, or what it is you have to lie about. Now, the whole point of why we need timestamp, or why we need like timestamps on top of Nostr, because Nostr already does one thing. It uses keys, and keys to some degree guarantee, or like at least indicates consistency of author, let's say, or source, right? um, Keys can become compromised, of course. That can be a problem, but when they're not compromised, at least we have some notion of authenticity, right? That's what keys do.
yeah.
um, and the other part is, with timestamps, we it's bound to time. So we have authentic messages that are at least bound to time to some extent, that we know that they're not, that they're at least that old. Now, why is everything of this relevant? Um, because our ability to assess data, so this is hermeneutics, right? It's the ability to interpret data, um, is always done, like text is always interpreted in context. The problem is that with digital media, it's very difficult to interpret the text in relation to its context, and that is now supercharged with all the AI stuff. So the whole notion of a video with the face of the president, in the voice of the president, making a statement, right, is
Mhm.
just simply not enough anymore, because it's trivial to fake it. Maybe it's not perfect now, but we can imagine like in a month it's going to be perfect, right? So you cannot assess just on the data itself. You cannot judge the data itself any longer, right? You need context in order to judge the data, because every form of digital media can just be faked. If it's it used to be that it's hard to fake video or hard to fake audio, um, but it's no
Can you
it,
do have an AI that detects this stuff much better than we do?
yes, but that's part of that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the solution, to have an AI that detects this stuff. Um, but the other part is that you give context in order to judge it, and part of that context is the authenticity in the form of keys, and that's one part of the story. And the other part of the story is context in terms of time, and that's what the timestamps are for. So
Yeah,
if
but
I'm in,
we can't use keys on a video.
what do you mean you can't use keys on a video?
When you're speaking, you're not using any cryptographic keys.
You can, but if you publish the video, you can sign the video, can't you?
But this the video could still be fake, and you're just signing it a fake video.
Yes, but then it's known that then it's at least, you cannot, then it's explicit, right? That it's somebody lied, then that the fake video is tied to that key. So
Like it could be the president's key
yes,
signing a video of the president speaking,
yes,
but the video could be fake
yes.
because, for example, the president could be very bad at speaking, and so he made an AI to speak for him
But
much
then at the
better.
very least, assuming that the key is not compromised, it's still it's still a message from the president, right? I don't care if he's waving his dick around. It is still a message from the president. That's the point, right? It's authentic. It's authentic for the fact that the source is the president.
Okay, I get a point, but I'm
And the other
it's
part
not fully
is,
authentic because it's not him speaking.
no, but it's him broadcasting it. I don't care.
Okay,
So I don't care what the content is, right? I'll judge that later. That's a separate judge. I don't. Maybe I disagree with him, right? Because I'm from a other political party. I don't care about that stuff, right? But I first need
okay,
to know, is it actually from the president or not?
yeah, but how do we solve the other part? I mean, more interested in that. Although this has nothing to do with open timestamps anymore. Yeah,
What
yeah.
is
Go
what
on,
do you
go
mean
on.
about the other part?
The other
The
part,
pro, the
the
pro, the
part that he is himself saying with his own mouth something.
I'm not bothered
Because
by that.
Because
because a
you're a
pres
machine.
no
I'm a human.
no, because a president can lie. That's the exact same thing, right? He can lie,
Okay. Okay.
right? That's the exact same thing as using whatever. That's a different problem that people can lie. But that's not the
That's
problem that
true.
we have to
That's a
solve.
good answer. Okay.
Yes. So it's about the authenticity, and then the timestamping stuff is especially relevant when. So I studied history, right? So I look at this stuff from the perspective of a historian, and when I'm studying archival matter, like old documents and stuff, part of that is what you do is you assess the document is part of the context. So the paper is very old, so we can do chemical studies on the paper, and that's how we know that the document is like 500 years old or something, right? It's archaeology. You can do archaeology. You can't do archaeology on data because their data doesn't smell, doesn't rot, right? It's just data. So if I want to be able to assess something about the time period, I if I don't have timestamps, right, or something like that, then I would have to assess it from the context. But the problem is that it's ultimately very trivial to create any facade or like fake world out there. You can spin up a fake world. You just ask ChatGPT to simulate a million conversations and bullshit, and then I can implant my document there in that context, and then looking at it from like in 1,000 years, I'll never be able to decipher the fact that I'm just looking at the figments of an AI's mind, right, instead of what it actually occurred at the time. So I'm not
Interesting.
able to date the data, because what do I have to grasp in order to know that something occurred at a certain time? And so we had the
Okay, I see
authenticity
it now.
problem,
I
and
see
we
it
have the
now. Yeah.
timeline problem, and this is the reason why we at least need this, right? It's not going to solve the problem entirely, like keys
Yeah,
can be
but it makes.
compromised,
Yeah, I
but
see. I
it's
see it now. I was thinking that I would timestamp only important things,
no,
but
you
now
timestamp
that you're saying that,
everything.
yeah, I think we have to timestamp everything. That will bring it be much more valuable content if it's timestamped like that. Yes.
And the thing is, it's trivially the cost is trivial, so why not just like i'm I'm not arguing that it's like the benefits are like extreme. No, the benefits might be extremely marginal, but so are the costs. So we might as well do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
true. That's it. Very good. I didn't expect any of that.
Seriously.
Yeah. You're hired for the Nostr manager, general chief of staff.
uh,
Okay, another thing in Nostr that is better than Blue Sky now. We have timestamps.
well, okay, so this is something. So how are you going to implement it? Because you had your first suggestion on the NIP.
Yeah, my first suggestion was that clients would store it, maybe just some, or some servers would store timestamps for events they're interested in, and then they would return these to clients that cared about these timestamps for any reason. But your suggestion is much better. That just make an event referencing the other event, and you put the timestamp in that, and then anyone can easily store that without having to create any special code for it. They can just download the timestamps and store,
Hmm. And everybody can create a timestamp on something.
and everybody can create a timestamp. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Um, okay. Well, I'm happy to explain to you why it is that you should be doing this instead of just being bored. Now you can be excited about.
Actually, it's very boring. I'm working on behalf of people a million years in the future.
Yes, it is very boring. I can understand. But it's about the mundane, right? The that you get funding for. That's what I learned. I did some research about the open source stuff because of my application, and I learned that the whole reason there is funding is in order to fund the mundane stuff, not the fun stuff. So It's important.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but cool things are also important
these cool
because
things are also
otherwise,
important, but they get
without
done,
the
right?
without the
Cool
cool
things get
things,
done.
yeah, maybe.
Well, this is really cool, but it's only cool for history historians.
Yeah, I imagine they would be
Nobody
very.
fucking realizes this is a problem. It's like no, of course nobody realizes this is a problem because it's only a problem in 1,000 years. Yeah.
Yeah, but people will be very happy that we did this in the future.
Well, I would be very happy
Yeah.
if I were an historian in a thousand
Are we
years.
going
I
to
would be.
timestamp this episode and sign it and put it somewhere so the future people will find this episode?
Yes. Maybe we should also mention the block time or the block height.
Yeah, we have to do that.
Yes. Then we're a real Bitcoin podcast if we mention the block height.
Yeah, because then we can say this thing happened after this and before that, and then we have a very manageable. Like this happened after the block height whatever with the hash whatever, and then we publish the timestamp, which will be like 3 hours or 6 hours in the future. Then we know a very small range in which this episode could have been recorded.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm not going to read the block hash here, so we just write it
Put
somewhere.
it in the description.
Yeah, on YouTube, that is going to last for 1,000 years.
Yes. Everything on YouTube is going to last for 1,000 years minimally. All right.
Okay, the end.